Hi, everyone. This is Jose Mauricio Duque. I am the head of marketing and branding from Newstex. I'm here. We are today with Robert Caulk, founder and CEO of AskNews. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to celebrate this new partnership. This is an interview where we are going to focus on this new partnership we have celebrated together, and we are going to explore the strengths of AskNews' ability to scale licensed new data and its unique value for publishers. It will also talk about the AI news economy, market dynamics, publisher protection, technical innovation, and the future of news in AI. How that sounds, Robert?
Sounds perfect. Let's jump in.
Okay. Well, before we begin, why don't you present us the system that you have created?
Yeah, we're really excited to come out with this set of first publishers joining the AskNews system. We have a vision of how the relationship between the publisher and the AI world ecosystem should interact. And it's a very difficult bridge to build because there are, copyright protections and licensing agreements and monetization tracking and optimizing ingestion on the LLM side. And all of these things form one bridge. And that is what we're considering the AskNews bridge, bridging the publishers to the AI ecosystem. In our particular bridge, we're focused on primarily ensuring that the data is protected with a synthetic representation, a synthetic document. So we can jump into that, but a grounded synthetic document takes the original text and extracts the most important context from it, while stripping the voice and the narrative and the original expression from that text. Instead, we're building a contextual document, which we're calling the synthetic grounded data, and indexing that, making it searchable, and passing that and selling that to the AI ecosystem. So that is the key to the AskNews bridge when it comes to protecting the original publisher rights. And we can dive deeper into some of those points that we're talking about here, but to us, that is what really distinguishes us from the rest of the other AI monetization, news monetization platforms, which are all great and all have their own strengths that they can boast about as well. So that's kind of a very high level overview of the AskNews bridge and what we're building and the vision we see for protecting publisher data.
That's great. Thank you, Rob. What I see is that this system that you have created helps to make visible these publishers because what I see from other systems is the publisher becomes invisible, right?
The publisher, it depends. Yeah, for sure. Making the system retrieve relevant information is a key piece to this puzzle, because the AI ecosystem, these are agents, these LLMs that they speak natural language at any given moment in time. They need some very specific subset of relevant articles to feed into the system to then reason on top of, make a decision, make a forecast, whatever it is. So that retrieval process, getting relevant documents, those synthetic grounded data documents that we talked about, getting those out of the database at the right time, at the right moment, for sure it gives publishers the ability to get in front of the right consumer at the right time. And that's true that other systems, maybe they don't have an index, and so it's a bit more crude or more raw of an interaction, where ours is much more of kind of a Spotify, a curation of information that we believe the LLM needs at that moment in time, and we're curating it instead of just giving access like the Cloudflare model is go to the publisher website, pay to scrape it, but getting to the website, navigating the website, understanding what content is in the website, that is all falls on the AI user, the shoulder of the users. But we find that a lot of the AI ecosystem is not trying to do that. They prefer to just ask for the right information and get it properly cleaned and curated. And that is why that subset of that AI ecosystem is very happy to get any source in front of them as long as it's a source that is relevant to what they're trying to ask about.
Well, that's great. It will be fair to say that your system makes easier for publishers to trace and attribute their content.
So the publisher isn't necessarily attributing their own content. Now, for sure, when their content surfaces in this system for the AI side of the bridge, the AI side knows which publishers are surfacing and which articles are a part of that. And that is for context. That is so that the LLM can make smarter choices. The more context, the better decision that LLM can make. So for sure that some of the decisions that AI system needs to make do need to be traced by a human at some point. So yes, passing along traceability through this pipeline is a key piece of the puzzle. Where did this information come from? Even though the original text is not passed, this synthetic representation is passed along, and some human down the chain in that AI ecosystem is going to want to verify where the information came from. And so, yes, traceability is a really big piece of the puzzle.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Let's jump to our questions. First one is about our partnership with you guys. So AskNews recently announced a partnership with Newstex and a content licensing specialist that connects publishers with platforms. How does this collaboration strengthen your ability to scale licensed news data? And what unique value does it bring to publishers compared to direct partnerships alone?
That's a good question. And we get that question from publishers themselves a lot. Licensing with publishers is a really laborious part of the process. Our licenses with some of these big publishing houses sometimes take 6 months of back and forth and adding terms, removing terms, and that process slows down our strength. Our strength is the engineering and research side. We're putting in research into how to synthesize information so that an AI can ingest it, and how to store it, and how to retrieve it, and how to scale that, and how to improve performance. That's where we are scientists by trade. So that's our strength. So Newstex strength is interacting with publishers. And I think Newstex has been doing this for over 20 years at this point, where it is about maintaining relationships with publishers and going through some of those long, laborious talks of getting a license set up. And so offloading that to Newstex is quite valuable to us, because it allows us to focus on what we're good at, and it allows Newstex to focus on what they're good at. Newstex also has other types of clients that can use the data, and they have custom interactions with every single publisher. Every publisher gets to choose which clients they can pass data to. And so we are just one additional market on top of the other sorts of broad use cases that news data can be used in. Our market is that B2B high stakes decision-making systems in the AI ecosystem. And so we really plug in right there. So that is how it allows us to scale, because we can focus on what we're good at.
Okay, let's jump to the AI-ready news economy. AskNews describes itself as serving research and high-stake decision platforms that need factual, machine-readable signals for trusted news sources, not prose. How does this synthetic news layer approach differ from traditional content aggregation, and why it's essential for enterprise AI applications?
I can kind of go back to that original point I made. The cleaner a picture you can paint for an LLM in the AI ecosystem, the better it can reason and make a decision on top of that. And so, if we take the example of dumping HTML, a lot of HTML, this messy code with ellipses everywhere and random links, and you dump all that into an LLM, you will get something out, but it's not the most optimal picture of what's going on. In fact, it's missing some context, interestingly enough. And it's a lot of tokens in the AI ecosystem. Tokens are what drive cost. The more input tokens that you put in, the more costly your decision is when your system makes that decision. So this synthetic layer, as you just described it, which is a good way to describe it, is we're taking the HTML and we're processing it and then enriching it and adding more contextual information to paint a higher resolution image of the world model that this LLM needs to reason on top of. So, if we're going to try to, if there's an LLM that needs information about recent trade tariffs in the with respect to the EU, it's going to ask for all of the news related to trade tariffs around the EU for the past few months. It's going to get a lot of clean context, and those documents are going to come from a lot of different languages and a lot of different countries and a lot of different sources, and they're going to talk about different perspectives, different components, different industries. And this is painting a very, very high resolution contextual picture of what's going on. And the only way to do that is to have pre-processed and prepared and cleaned this data, added context to it, locations, geocoordinates, relationships, extracting the people and the organizations and knowing the publish date. A lot of little contextual cues that LLMs can pick up as they reason to come up with, well, based on all of this in all of these industries doing all of this and all of these trade talks with all of these countries, I forecast that the tariffs are going to stay at this percentage, or whatever it is that high stakes decision making system needs to make in order to produce a high value decision for a company. So that is the service, the bridge that the AskNews serves is, hey, you're getting this very clean, very compact, very high resolution contextual picture through that synthetic layer from from a high diversity of sources, which gives you a higher objective accuracy when it comes to what's actually going on in the world. And the more objectively accurate your world model is, the more likely your decision is going to be right at the end of the day. That's it. It's basically the old adage from, the last 20 years, data scientists have been saying garbage in, garbage out. Well, HTML in is basically garbage in, and that would produce garbage out. But a clean representation with enriched context in gives you a very, very high resolution objective reality that allows you to really do reasoning. So I think that's a really long-winded way to just say quality in, quality out. And that's a lot of what we say to people. It's quality in, quality out.
That's a great way to put it. And also in the end, it's going to be not only accurate, it's going to be cheaper, faster, and more comprehensive, right?
Yeah, cheaper and faster, definitely more comprehensive and more reliable too, by the way. More, as a lot of these businesses that are interacting with this system, they want to make sure that, hey, I make a query today, I need to be able to make a query tomorrow and in 10 years. And that system needs to be producing a very predictable output. And that, that goes to, okay, is the data processing pipeline sturdy and reliable and scalable? But is the source information sustainable? Which brings us to the Newstex partnership and the licensing partnership of this, which is, well, if you're just scraping the HTML directly, it's not a sustainable model. You as a business should not build a high stakes decision-making system on just scraped HTML, because it's a brittle from an engineering perspective. But hey, maybe the journalists writing that information aren't able to actually continue doing it because it's not a sustainable world model. So those are two really important components.
That's impressive. My next question will be, with your 50% revenue sharing model, how are publishers responding to this approach compared to other AI licensing deals in the market? What usage patterns are you seeing through these publishers' dashboards?
Yeah, we can kind of split that up into two. So maybe we'll do the patterns second. And yeah, actually, we're not that off. We're not so unique in this revenue share model. I think we've seen a couple similar revenue share models crop up through other areas. So, you know, the 50-50 revenue share model for us is really important because it puts us in direct service to the publishers themselves. Now, I think Perplexity is doing a similar revenue share model for their publishers that are integrated into their system, and that's great. The only difference is that the original text can be shared. And so it's really important to understand that, you know, you can get involved in any of these models, whether it's a revenue share or a pay per show model. And some of these are great, you know, like Cloudflare itself is allowing you to just scrape, which is a pay per scrape. But you're allowing a system to scrape that original text. So that's the real distinction here, is that we are not allowing the original text to pass through. So that's probably what the publishers notice the most in comparison to us. With respect to, you know, our publisher dashboard, I think we can kind of touch on what that is and why it's so important. So we are serving publishers just as equally to the AI ecosystem, and the publishers are interested in the analytics, the usage analytics of how and when are my articles cropping up in this system and why. And you know, for one, they want to track the usage so that they can see what revenue share they're getting out of that 50% pool and confirm that it makes sense. But on the other hand, they're interested in the usage analytics because it can help drive the type of content that they're producing. Why did one particular document surface 1,000 times and then another document surfaced 0 times? The publisher dashboard is our window into that data to help them navigate and you know, gain insights into how their data is being used in this particular market, the AI ecosystem for high stakes decision making systems. What are some patterns that we see? It's really interesting, actually. We see a lot of clustering around certain types of queries at certain times. It's really, we serve a lot of forecasting markets, and so these are users on Polymarket and companies interacting with Polymarket or with Caulk or Metaculus, and those forecasting markets are very much focused on forecasting real-time events and tracking real-time events. And so what we see for usage patterns is hitting, you know, the globally interesting events that are occurring, especially in what could be forecasted around those events. You know, this could be as benign as the new iPhone launch is going to include a special battery technology, yes or no, to something a lot more polemic around, you know, certain wars. I won't mention wars in particular, but obviously there's a lot of geopolitical tension and trends and shifts. And if forecasting those shifts can lead to really, really helpful decisions for government agencies and for businesses that might be interested in either assisting with some of these conflicts or engaging or moving their industry coincident to these conflicts, or understanding if a conflict is breaking out in a certain region, that all comes from tracking the latest events. And so really the top patterns we see are clusters around the queries of clusters around those types of events. So, you know, the best publishers in our current system are the ones that are are releasing information related to the top of global events, which is common, and that's great. So I don't know if that answers your question or if it was too long-winded, but yeah, that's probably
Plenty,
the usage pattern.
plenty. And it was very enlightening for me to see these use cases because for me it was more like, as you were saying, benign, like the iPhone launch, not this kind of really relevant and crucial use cases in geopolitics, as you were saying. So let's
Yeah.
jump to our next topic, market dynamics and growth. The global AI market is projected to reach 107 billion in funding for 2025. With news analytics being a key growth area, what specific use cases in forecasting, risk assessment, and financial analysis are driving demand for AskNews structured news data?
Yeah, I like that question. It's pretty clearly established that news analytics are key to many of the industries that are participating in this new AI market, and they're experimenting in the market. There's plenty of companies that are out testing systems they're not sure are going to work. So it's a really early phase of the AI ecosystem. It's really interesting to watch which use cases and applications are most beneficial and have the biggest ROI or have the most kind of integrity in some cases. We touched a little bit on that geopolitical forecasting. That does go to the risk assessment, and some of what we see is that we have early clients, and there's nothing saying that our early client list is a representative sampling of the population of potential clients, but we do have a really nice spread, and some of the early power users are in risk assessment and analysts trying to better understand regional security and help their clients better prepare for regional security or give on-the-fly security recommendations to traveling clients, and tactical daily reports or weekly strategic reports. So these are really, really human-intensive applications where human is definitely in the loop and will not be removed anytime soon, but they're being accelerated really quickly by access to large swaths of news analytics, which is basically where we plug into those systems, giving an analyst the ability to track 40 languages and 150,000 articles in their particular domain over the past couple months in this exact topic, and talk to that and brainstorm with that and theorize. That we're seeing really interesting use case. But yeah, then you can kind of bump out to financial analysis. This has always been a driver in news analytics. News APIs themselves have been around for 2 decades at this point. So, and finance has been the primary consumer of those. So it's natural that the financial use case will evolve into the AI ecosystem as well. And we're already seeing it, and that's great. In some ways, we are a new age news API, which is kind of interesting to see the financial clients evolve, and we have evolved. But yeah, I think maybe one of the more, we have a lot of universities that are also performing research and sometimes not even performing research on the data, but using the data to help write research grants, which is really interesting. For example, Kennesaw State University has set up a system which interacts with our news analytics to help their researchers basically brainstorm grant proposals and say, hey, I'm thinking about writing a proposal about this. Are the governmental wins in my favor? Does it look like next year that type of are the technologies at a point where research funding is going to come in? Really helping them optimize their research proposals so that they can hit and improve their success rate on research proposals. So I love that because that is a really good example of when your brain gets access to a lot more information from a lot more places and can start understanding supply trends and dynamics and tech dynamics from a million places at once, their brains are just elevated, and all of a sudden they can make really smart choices about how to actually write the research proposal and what not to write about. In some cases, that's the goal is, oh, maybe this is a bad proposal because green energy is currently politically unfavorable. And so maybe, writing a proposal around green energy for this particular year is not a smart decision. So these are interesting decisions that scientists have to make. And we're just there with the news analytics at the bottom of it. So, I mean, there's a ton of other use cases. I don't want to spend too much time, but those are some interesting ones.
Those were great. And what I see most inspiring is how your system amplifies and empower and enhance human intelligence and capabilities. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that that's the key piece to this. A lot of people think, oh, so analysts are obsolete now. But what we've learned most over the 3 years that we've been building and researching in this world is that analysts are more important than ever. Human in the loop is more important than ever. Not only because hallucinations exist, right? That is something that needs to be considered, but that the human brain is so capable of abstraction, and
Yeah.
AI is yet another tool that you can add to the list of the pencil and the printing press and Google and now AI. The human brain can abstract these levels, and every time the human brain makes an abstraction and starts to use that abstraction as a tool, it's capable of much higher level of discovery and higher level. It's just a much more capable brain. And so I think that is the role that AI plays. Maybe we're wrong, but that's what we've observed very closely with the users. And so a lot of the systems that we are providing data in are designed to help their analysts or their C-suite executives just pull more information and use it better.
We are very aligned with that vision of the role of AI for humankind. I love it. Let's jump to our next question. This is a very good one. Your platform enriches content with contextual metadata, such as bias, classification, geographical locations, sentiment analysis, source origin, and more. How does this context engineering process help enterprises make better decisions compared to raw news feeds?
Yeah, that is the key question. And this goes to that painting a higher resolution contextual picture. So it really is about contextualizing as many details as possible, as many accurate details as possible, and handing that to the LLM so that when it starts doing its reasoning and trying to generate some output, it has all of these little details. The source origin, what's the country of origin? That is an interesting contextual detail that plays a role. What was the detected bias? Is there bias? What's the voice of the reporting style, right? Was this written with sensational voice? Was this written with persuasive voice? Knowing about those details, those contextual details, helps you better understand how to treat the information itself. If it was written in a sensational tone, that information should be treated very differently than if it was written with an objective tone. And so it's just adding contextual clues as much as possible. And that really is what our research is about. And we're really proud of it. That's actually why we do this, because that's the research we love. And the goal is to keep funding that research. And that research is open sourced as well. So all of the models that we train to extract bias, to extract entities, the goal of those models is to get to objective reality and to do it with as much balance and diversity as possible, because that gets you a better, more realistic contextual clue. Those are open sourced, and some of our models are used by thousands and thousands of users on Hugging Face, which we're really proud of. And I think it's a key piece to the puzzle is making sure that the tools in our system are open sourced, because transparency is a really big, a really important component of building trust with a high-stakes decision-making system. Why should this high-stakes decision-making system outsource trust to us? Because let's be realistic, they have to outsource the trust that we're going to find the right information and provide the right information to them at the right time. So in order to do that, we open source all of the building blocks. And so that research is openly available, and we've got a lot of really fun ones in the pipeline too, which should be open sourced within the coming months. So yeah, I think that answers the reasons why we're adding contextual metadata to the output.
Congratulations, very inspiring. Let's jump to publisher protection and fair use, another good one. You have stated that traditionally scraped content is inconsistent, legally risky, and often stripped of critical nuance. How does AskNews' licensing first approach protect publishers while still enabling the scale needed for AI training?
Yes, I mean, I'll start with the fact that traditionally scraped content is just inconsistent and missing some critical nuance. That goes to all of these little contextual clues we've been talking about. You know, some of them don't have the geo-coordinates associated with the mentions of locations. Actually, none of them have that kind of information. But it might also have little like snippets here and snippets there, which could confuse the LLM. It could be like even unrelated at all to the article at hand. It could be a separate article that is scraped on the same HTML page, and it could have some ellipses, and it could really confuse an LLM when it starts to see these things next to each other and it's trying to reconcile that information. So that's risky in itself. Obviously, the legality of it currently is being contested in court, and how should scraping be treated. You know, originally scraping is allowed, generally speaking, but what you do with the scraping and how you scrape are all very important questions that need to be answered currently in the courts. But I think the final part of the question, which was enabling AI training. So the beauty of the data that we are indexing is that it's really bad for AI training because it's very repetitive, and it's not actually, it's missing that original expression that can help train a model to speak more fluently and more with more creativity. And that's the court case that the New York Times is currently in with OpenAI, that they used OpenAI's original expression to train the models. On the other hand, the data that we are indexing, the synthetic layer, that grounded synthetic data, is just not good for training an LLM. It will make the LLM kind of boring. It won't help the LLM improve its vocabulary, stuff like that, because it's a very robotic representation of the information, which is very good for stating what's there and contextualizing and handing information to an LLM for inference, which is not training, but it's very bad for actual training. So I think that's a key piece to and that's a question we get from publishers a lot. You know, is anyone using this data for training? Not really. I mean, you could maybe use it to help inform an LLM, but
Yeah,
it's just not that good for training.
well, yeah, that's very important because it's not content for them to ingest. It's just to connect to that word model and provide better answers, right?
Yeah, it's really the difference between inference and train. And with
Yeah.
inferencing, it is essentially taking a model that already is trained and just inferencing, passing information in to have it generate output. But it's not modifying any of the internals. It's not training it. It's just having it talk. So when you talk with ChatGPT, you're inferencing it. You're just handing it information. You're saying, hey, help me write a recipe for beef bourguignon. But then it generates it. That's not training. The opposite is when, okay, you're actually going to modify the internals with data points and change the weights, as they're called. so that it generates different output when it is inferenced on the other side, just for any viewers who are curious about the difference.
Okay, let's jump to our final segment, the future of news in AI. With 75% of senior executives identifying AI and predictive analysis as primary growth drivers in 2025, how do you see the relationship between news publishers and AI platforms evolving over the next few years?
Well, I hope that we can help connect and bridge those two parties. So the AI platforms, I think when you say AI platforms, do you mean the users or?
I mean, like ChatGPT, Perplexity.
Right. I think we're going to see the AI. We're already seeing it, which is nice. We're going to see the AI platforms licensing data through those publishers. And I think there are a bunch of interesting models that business models that crop up during this phase. I think we're seeing, even some of who you could consider our competitors are actually doing really good work, and they're addressing a different need, and they're addressing a different market. And so we're going to see a lot of those crop up. And I think the platforms are going to hopefully use us, these intermediaries who are in there talking to the publishers, trying to establish rates and trying to understand, okay, how do we actually support this system? What is the value for this other party? So I really hope that they either go direct or start using some of us, but to either us or some of our competitors to obtain that information. And the news publishers should make out like bandits at the end. That would be the ideal outcome. And from what I can tell, that is going to be the case. A lot of the big publishing houses have already inked, 8-digit deals, or even 9-digit deals with some of these platforms to license their content. Sometimes for training, but sometimes also just for inference with user interaction. And that's great for those big publishing houses. But what about the small publishers around the world? And I think that's one good place where Newstex and AskNews can really plug in, because we can, these small publishers can't get a seat in a boardroom with OpenAI to get a $10 million deal because they're too small. But their data is sometimes more valuable, believe it or not. Like sometimes the large publishers, it's great information, but when the goal is actually an abundance of diversity and of language and country to paint a larger picture, a Forbes scoop on some random event doesn't actually drive what the LLM needs. It's more what's everyone saying in all of their little perspectives, and those are small publishers. And so I think that the key here is, how do we help the smaller publishers also benefit? And that is one of the primary objectives of the Newstex AskNews partnership.
Our last question. What role with partnerships with content licensing specialists like us, Newstex, play in creating what you have called a new standard for how trusted journalism flows into rapidly growing markets?
I think that those licensing deals are a really important key to the puzzle. So getting them right and making sure they're balanced, and making sure that both parties are aware of who needs what and why they need it, and why they, how that relationship can and should evolve. I think getting those licensing deals right is kind of like surgery. And so having a licensing specialist who's been licensing and knows the history of where licensing has originated, plays a massive role in how the evolution of licensing should move forward. I don't think scientists, researchers who are focused in engineering should be doing that. And so, I think 20 years in the news business, Newstex, interacting with different types of licensing and understanding needs and understanding wants, and linking those with real good, fair licensing agreements is crucial. And so that is that's the key component to it, is in getting trusted journalism flowing into these markets. So yeah, that's my opinion on it, which is what the reason that we partnered.
Thank you so much, Rob. This has been a great interview. We are really excited to have you on board, and we see an amazing horizon of opportunities. Do you have any final words?
I appreciate the time, and yeah, let's head over to asknews.app and feel free to reach out to us if you're a publisher and you'd like to explore the idea of monetizing your information with this synthetic layer, because there's really are a lot of opportunities right now, and the more people jumping in, the better, I think. So yeah, looking forward to the next few years of AI and news.
Thank you so much, Rob. Have a good one.
Thanks.